children, and welcome to my chamber. My name is Rotherick Gastblood, and I'm your host of Tales from the Dark Chamber. This week, we have a great show for you. Tales to make your skin crawl. Each week, my chambermate and I read a scary tale that we found on the internet, or perhaps left under some corpse. Either way, we think you're going to like it, and we're just dying for you to hear it. So sit right back, light a candle, and let's have a ghoul evening.
No. Not me. Me. No. Didn't do it. Can't get to outside. Mom. No. Help who?
Woody. Woody. Woody.
What? Huh? Rotherick. What is it? Where?
You were sleeping and...
Rotherick, what are you doing in my room? What the...
I could hear you all the way down to the chamber. You were having a lovely nightmare.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yes. Wow, what a dream. I need to lay off the late-night snacks or something.
Well, you certainly did seem to be in distress. Are you all right?
Yeah, I think so. Everything was so vivid, like I was actually there.
Well, you'd better wake up and get down to the chamber. It's just about story time, and ever since you got back from your vacation, you've not read to our fans. They're waiting.
Yeah, sure. I'll be down in a few minutes.
Ah, feeling better?
Marginally.
Good. So, what was your dream about anyway?
Well, it was a creepy one. I was at home. No, at some other house. And no matter what I did or where I went, I couldn't get out. Felt like someone was following me, watching me. Images of my mom, friends, they all needed me to help them, but there was nothing I could do.
Ooh, sounds like the Gastblood family reunion.
Funny, Rotherick. Anyhow, that reminds me of tonight's story. So tonight we read another, and might I say, an excellent tale from our featured author, Hillbilly Creeper. He sent me this one, and I have to say I was immediately hooked. We think you're going to like it.
That's my line, Woody.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's a two-part tale that we'll read. Enjoy. Trapped by Hillbilly Creeper. Part 1. My name is Chuck, and the story I'm about to tell you is real. You couldn't make this shit up even if you tried. It all started normally. I was home watching a little bit of television while eating my dinner. I'd just taken the first bite of juicy steak when I heard a knock at the door. I got up to answer it and found my friend Richie standing there, stoned out of his mind. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He hobbled in, almost passing out on my floor, but I grabbed his shoulder and escorted him to my couch, gently sitting him down. Jesus, Richie, you look like shit, I said to him. He flipped me off and cleared his throat and responded back, "Well, I love you too, buddy." I sighed. "Why are you here, Richie? Why can't you crash at your place?" Richie spoke back, "Well, buddy, I came here to tell you something, if you are interested in hearing it." I thought for a moment before responding. "If you're here to brag about your sex life again, I already know, Richie. You're a stud." Richie looked down and said, "No, dude, that's not it. I already know I'm a stud, but that's beside the point. The reason I'm here is I need to tell you about a house that showed up out of nowhere, right in my neighborhood nonetheless. I listened to him and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Richie was known to get pretty wasted or high and see shit all the time. I was about to tell him to leave when he said, I can prove it. Let me show you that this house is real, and if it's not there like I say it is, then I'm fucked up out of my mind and I will stop doing drugs. I sighed and said, all right, Richie, you got yourself a deal. If it's not there, you will stop doing drugs. If it is, I will believe you from now on. We shook on it, making the deal final, and I waited until Richie was sober enough to get up on his feet. A few hours later, we got ready to go outside. I told him I would drive considering he was still pretty messed up, so he handed me the keys and we got into his car. Richie drove an old Cadillac which had been passed down by his grandfather. It was a beat-up old clunker, but it still ran. I guess you can't judge a book by its cover, I suppose. We drove down the road and headed towards Richie's neighborhood. I had an eerie feeling. Something in the back of my mind was telling me not to go there. I didn't listen to it, though. I just shrugged it off and kept driving. We drove for a couple of miles before finally reaching his neighborhood. Richie lives in one of those neighborhoods that look like something out of an 80s movie. You know, many cul-de-sacs, grass cut uniformly, and lots of fences painted white. Don't get me wrong, I would love to live in a place like that, but the neighbors are just too close. That's why I live away from town. We drove down his street and he told me to pull into his driveway. We could walk the rest of the way, and he didn't want his car near the mystery house for some reason. I pulled into his driveway as he'd asked and got out of the car. We started to walk the rest of the way until Richie stopped in his tracks. I couldn't believe my eyes. There it was, like Richie said. It was a house that had no reason to be there in this particular neighborhood. It was wrong somehow, out of place. The house was older than those that surrounded it, and it was built in a colonial style. The windows appeared to be boarded up. The shingles on the roof were chipped away, and the grass was completely dead, though it was summer at the time. I couldn't believe it. Richie was telling the truth. I looked up at the house and all. Well, shit, Richie. I guess a deal's a deal. I owe you an apology. I guess you're telling the truth. Richie said, rolling his eyes. I told you I wasn't too fucked up and imagining shit. This house was not here yesterday. It just showed up. I don't know how and I don't know why, but it feels like something out of the damn creepy pasta. I said, yeah, man, I feel you on that. Kind of like that no-end house situation or some shit. Richie responded, yeah, but this isn't a creepy pasta, Chuck. This shit is real, and the feeling I'm getting right now just by looking at this place, it feels like I'm about to piss myself. I rolled my eyes. Well, just hold it, because I'm not standing next to a guy who pisses himself. Anyway, what do you think? Should we go in? Do you want to investigate? Richie shouted angrily, fuck no, I don't want to go investigate. If you want to, be my guest. I laughed. What's the matter, Richie? Too chicken shit? Afraid of a house? Richie growled. Shut up. I smirked. Whatever, man. I'm going to check it out myself if you're not going with me. I hesitated a little bit, but I had to show him I wasn't chicken shit like he was. I slowly approached the house even though the red flags were going off in my head, telling me to go away. This was a bad idea, but like the feeling I had in the car, I just shrugged it off and proceeded anyway. As I walked up to the house and stepped on the front porch steps, I laid my hands on the wooden railing. To my surprise, it was warm, but not like warm as the sun had been shining on it all day. Warm as in human type of warm. To top it all off, I swore it was pulsating like it was alive. I slowly reached for the doorknob, but immediately drew back. As soon as my fingers touched the doorknob, the door opened by itself. I thought, okay, man, this is an old house. The door must have already been open, or it was the wind. There's nothing wrong about that. Just suck it up. Look inside. I stuck my head in first and was greeted by nothing but darkness and quiet. I turned around and saw Richie standing there, so I hollered out to him for a flashlight. Hey, Richard, do you think you can stop being a scared little girl for a few minutes and get me a flashlight? Richie hissed. Yeah, I can. And fuck you too. Richie ran back to his car to grab a flashlight and brought it up to the house, but refused to step foot on the stairs. Well, are you going to give me the flashlight or not? I asked grumpily. Richie growled at me once more. Fuck that. I'm not going up there. Richie tossed the flashlight and started to walk away. I shook my head in disbelief at how childish he was being. It's just a house, right? There's no reason to be afraid of an old, empty house, is there? I flipped him off and turned on the flashlight and looked back inside. Nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. Sheets covered the furniture, dust and cobwebs reigned supreme all through the place. I took one step further and went into the house. That's where the real story began. I took a look around the living room. There was nothing out of the ordinary, maybe a few creepy pictures. You know, the ones that seem to follow you around the room? A bunch of rats ran across the floor, but everything just seemed normal for an old house. That is, until I heard a noise coming from the dining room area. I decided to investigate. I stepped into the dining room area, and that's where things took a turn for the worse. I can't really explain it. All I can tell you is I saw the table set as though someone would soon be holding a dinner party. The plates, knives, spoons, and forks were placed carefully on a pristine tablecloth without a speck of dust on them, even though everything else was covered. I thought maybe someone was crashing here for the night, or some homeless person was staying here having nowhere else to go. After all, the homeless shelters around here are crap. They only help a few people at a time anyway. Most people were turned away when they needed it most. Why would a homeless person set a table like this? Possibly there was more than one, or they just have high standards. Who knows? I started hearing the noise again, though this time it was coming from the kitchen. I followed the noise, but when I got there, I stopped in my tracks, immediately afraid. There was blood everywhere. It covered the walls almost as if someone had cut up a body and splattered the walls with blood. It looked kind of like a Jackson Pollock painting in a sick, twisted way. I turned around to go back into the dining room, but the door that I originally came through was gone. I started to freak out. Hell, at this point, I was scared shitless. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. What is this place? Doors don't fucking disappear. Okay, Chuck. Get it together, man. No time to freak out here, I said to myself. I took a deep breath to calm myself down a little bit, and that's when I saw another door on the other side of the kitchen leading to a hallway. I made it to the door, passing through the blood-splattered floors and walls, and started to walk through the hallway. I saw many doors. Letting my curiosity get the best of me, I decided to open the first door I came to. That was a mistake. I turned the knob. When the door opened, I was dragged inside by an unseen force, and the door slammed shut behind me. It managed to vanish like the door in the kitchen, but that was the least of my worries. I started to hear disembodied screaming that sounded like someone getting tortured, followed by the sound of a gunshot. At this point, I was down on the ground bawling my eyes out, begging for the screaming to stop. It just kept getting louder, becoming unbearable. Just when I thought it would last forever, a door finally appeared in front of me. I quickly grabbed the knob and ran out. I was back in the hallway where I started. I decided not to open any more doors unless I had to. I just kept walking through the hallway for what felt like an eternity. I didn't think I would ever get to the end. Without warning, a door on my right opened by itself. I was hesitant to go through because I was afraid of what might happen, but I sucked up my pride and went in anyway. In the room, I saw something that will forever haunt me. If I thought the room with the screaming or the kitchen with the blood was bad, they weren't anything compared to this room. Lining the walls and ceiling were bodies of mutilated people, men, women, and children. White and black, you name it. They were covering the walls, bleeding onto the floor. They looked fresh, as though they'd been killed recently and hung on the wall like sick and twisted trophies. I tried to hold back the urge to vomit, but the sight was too horrible. I couldn't hold it much longer, and I let it go as I cursed on my head. I puked up my words. What sick bastard would do this? I kept on cussing and puking until I finally calmed down. I looked up to see another door open, and I started to walk through the blood and vomit towards it. As I was about to grab the doorknob, the hands of the bodies started to reach out for me, crying in pain and begging me to help them. The bodies yelled in pain, "Help us, please! Help us! We don't want to die!" I cried through another bout of vomiting. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry." I swung the door open and jumped out of the room, ending up back in the same hallway. Another door opened across from the room I just came from, revealing a flight of stairs leading upwards. Just like the other rooms before it, I was hesitant, but I knew I had to get the hell out. I began walking up the stairs. They say when you ascend, you go to heaven. Ascending these stairs was like walking upwards through hell. I knew if I didn't go through this, I wouldn't ever get out of there. When I reached the second floor, I was again greeted by another hallway. It closely resembled the one on the ground floor, but this one seemed a little more distorted than the first. The wallpaper was ripped, and the light fixtures were either busted or flickering on and off, almost making a strobe light effect. This messed with my field of vision, but I didn't let it bother me. I just had to work through it. I walked through the hallway, and just like the last one, it seemed to go on forever. It seemed like I'd been walking for hours. The lights messed with my mind each time they blinked on and off. I swear I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway, watching me, taunting me. But when I got to where the person was, they seemed to have disappeared. I thought that I was about to lose my mind. I was thinking I was going to die here in this house when a door opened. I knew that if I went through the doorway, more terrible things awaited me, but I didn't care. At least I would be out of that hallway. I made a dash for the door and found myself in a child's playroom filled with the most fucking lifelike porcelain dolls I'd ever seen. I was afraid that they would come to life, and that was the last thing I needed. Besides, how embarrassing would it be to be killed off by a doll? I moved around the huge room just looking around at the dolls and toys. They were innocent enough until I started hearing childlike giggles followed by a creepy, soft voice.
Do you want to play with me, mister? Please, I'm so lonely here. I promise you I won't break you like the others,
it said. I was confused. Who the hell are you and what is this place? I yelled out, trying to get an answer. I got an answer. Boy, did I get an answer, and it was the one I didn't want to hear. A small girl suddenly appeared, a smile on her face.
You're in my house, and in my house you do as I say, or you will be punished like the others,
she giggled. I yelled, well, fuck this and fuck you. I'm getting out of here. The little girl giggled once more, but this time it was more demonic and sinister. She spoke up again when her giggles ceased.
Naughty, naughty. Toys shouldn't swear in front of a little girl like that. You better behave.
I growled, who the hell are you calling a toy? I'm a human being, not some plaything for your amusement. I'm getting out of here. Goodbye, creepy little girl. She smiled softly.
Okay, but once you leave this room, your nightmare will continue.
I scoffed and responded, I'll take my chances. Just like that, I left to find my way out. I dredged on, and at last I found another door. I didn't know what hellish things awaited me behind it. I took a deep breath and went in. What awaited me this time was nothing but a white room, and again the door I came through disappeared. I was trapped. I took this opportunity to rest. I was exhausted and burnt out. That moment of rest would be short-lived, however. I began to hear whispers telling me to kill myself or I'd never get out alive. They kept getting louder and louder and louder to the point where I had to cover my ears with my hands to keep them from bleeding. It was so fucking loud. Just when I thought it would never end, the sound just stopped and it was silent again. My torture wasn't over yet, however. The room went completely dark and a screen on the wall in front of me turned on. What I saw on that screen chilled me to the core. Right in front of me was the image of my friends and family from past, present, and even the future. I thought to myself how this wasn't possible. How could they know all this? Could they be reading my mind? If this was the case, what purpose does it serve to do this? Trapped by Hillbilly Creeper, Part 1. Well, folks, that's our story tonight. Rotherick and I hope you enjoyed it. We sure had a great time bringing it to you, and we really appreciate you listening. Tune in next week when we bring you another chilling Tales from the Dark Chamber. And just a note, if you're an aspiring author and want your story read here on Tales from the Dark Chamber, send us a note at talesfromthedarkchamber@gmail.com. If it creeps old Rotherick out enough, we'll air it. And subscribe to our channel here for notification of our next new episode, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember, hit that like button and help us grow the channel. Also, make sure you tell your friends about us. Spread the word. If you want your story recorded for your own use, or just want to have it, check out my website at woodygvoiceover.net. You can order there. And again, thank you for listening tonight.